Hello and welcome everyone to the launch of a very special report called the FinTech Exits Report. Um, First of all, a big thank you to Mushir and the FinStep Asia team, for inviting us to, talk about this report at the Virtual FinTech Fair. Incredible, lobby and experience at Virtual FinTech Fair so far. Thanks for putting it together. And we are very excited to share some of the findings of this report, which talks about the IPOs as well as M&A related exits that happen in the fintech space. I also have with me my colleague Vaibhav Mishra, who basically presided over this report, was the key man for everything from research to analysis to presentation. So for all the details of this report, he'll be taking us through it. But let me just say a few things to start with, and maybe Vaibhav, we can have the slideshow here. Uh,
Can you see the screen, Amit?
I am not able to see the screen, so. Okay, yeah. Can you go to the first slide, please?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So what we are going to cover in this report is based on data from the Medici platform, where both me and Weber work. And what we do at Medici is through three different means and a technology platform, we are able to track fintech companies all over the world throughout the year, every day, every hour. So what we do is we have a listening engine which tracks these companies on an ongoing basis. We also look at the data that the startups update on our platform on an ongoing basis. And then we also have our analysts add color commentary and create this reporting layers, like this report. So what we have been seeing is that there have been a lot of action from fintech exits perspective, um, especially IPOs as well as acquisitions. So we have today been able to bring you data from broadly like January 2019 to July, mid-July 2020. So we have been able to cover even sort of very recent data as well. So I hope you enjoy the analysis. So I am going to take you through some high-level insights. I'll cover a couple of points on what has happened in terms of fintech IPOs over the last 1.5 years or so. And then I'll also talk a little bit about the acquisitions that have happened in this space over the last 1.5 years. And then I'll give it to Vaibhav. You can actually access the full report on our website, and we will share the details at the end of this. You can go to gomedici.com in the report section, and you can see this report already being there, which has much more details. But we are going to present some of the key insights now. So if we can go to the next slide. So before I start talking about this, let me just say a few things, right? So one is that um, exits are very important in the startup world, right? So not that everybody is kind of building companies just to sell them, but I think it's a very, very important outcome for any company, whether they do an IPO or they join a large firm so that they can have access to a very large pool of resources and salespeople, so that they can take the formula, the idea that has worked at a smaller scale to a very large scale with the help of an acquisition. So fintech exits have been very, very interesting. This is one of the reasons why fintech space is considered very hot, because there are lots and lots of IPOs and exits in this space as compared to some of the other segments. What you see here is from January 2019 to July 15 to 2020, we are showing the IPOs that have happened in the fintech space from all over the world. There were more than 34 IPOs amounting to about $11.6 billion worth of IPOs. And as you can see, US has not only the most number of IPOs in fintech, but also kind of the largest amount of money raised through the IPOs, which is about $6.3 billion. And some of the companies are shown there. What we have done in this is, just for a simplistic representation, we have only taken companies which have done an IPO of greater than $100 million. So you do not see all the companies here. You only see ones which had a sizable IPO of sort of greater than $100 million. After US, in terms of just sheer numbers, the most number of IPOs actually happen in Australia, but the average size is kind of small. So I'll be talking about that a little bit. Europe, no, if we can go to the previous slide, I'm still there. Yeah. So if you see London and Luxembourg, the two, very few IPOs have happened, but they're very large in size. And I'll also share a little bit of sort of reasoning and sort of, what happens when an IPO happens, right? So all the investors, right, from angel stage to Series A, Series B, and various investors who have joined the company and have believed in the idea and the founders and have helped them grow, they definitely see a good outcome. The founders and the team also sees a good outcome. A lot of startups are not able to pay market salaries, but they sort of, depend on ESOPs. So this is a very good outcome overall for a startup, and many people sort of in the startup world dream of doing these kind of IPOs. If you see very closely, right, Asia seems to be kind of behind when it comes to IPOs. I will also talk about fintech exits. I think in Asia, especially like if you see a country like India, we had no sort of fintech IPO in the last 1.5 years. That it makes it harder for the companies to actually scale and raise money in public markets, and so on and so forth. But in Asia, generally, I think we have seen less of it. I think US is terrific in terms of exits. I was just tweeting yesterday that a podcast gets sold for $100 million, the Joe Rogan podcast, and Money 2020, the fintech conference got sold for $100 million. So I think the exit market, especially through IPOs and M&As, is very, very good in US. And if we can go to the next slide. What I have shown here is the number of IPOs that have happened, and I have also shown the average size of the IPO, right? But if you go to the main report, you will have details around which companies and what is the size of the IPO they have done. So if you see three interesting facts here. One is that US had the most number of IPOs, about 18, followed by Australia, which had 8. But if you see the average size, the largest IPOs are actually happening in London and Luxembourg, or sort of Europe in general. Asia had some mid-sized, small-sized IPOs. And then there was one in Egypt, which was again small size. Now, Australia is kind of very interesting, right? So as a small company, ASX actually allows you to do an IPO. So there's a lot of smaller IPOs which happen, and nothing wrong about it. I think it's a great outcome for the companies there. But again, the frontier market for IPOs continues to be US, I guess. So my colleague Vaibhav later on will deal into kind of more details about this, but let me also give an overview of the M&A section, the acquisitions which have happened in the next slide. Yeah, the next slide. Okay. So what we see in terms of M&A deals is that on an average, on a monthly basis, we see about 40 to 50 deals in terms of M&A every month. So that is what we have seen last year. 2019 was great in terms of 40 to 50 M&A deals happening every month. This year, right from January to July, things have not been as bad as you would assume with COVID-19 crisis and the repercussions of that. But if you see, we have not touched 50 deals this year. And in fact, March and April, just like the stock markets, just like the IPOs, just like everything else has been down, right? So, but if you see the acquisitions that have happened in January, February, or May bounced back, and then June and July, it's kind of pretty good, in terms of what's going on. One small caveat is that a lot of these deals actually take a lot of time, in terms of due diligence and closures. So some of the deal discussions might have happened much before these months. So if you were thinking that will COVID have any effect on this segment, I think June, July are a good reference, but we will also see what happens in August and September as we kind of update the data. So there were about 279 total deals in the last kind of 1.5 years, first January to 2019 to 31st July 2020. And let's go to the next slide to share a little bit more. Yeah, if we have just taken a sample of like the top 15 global fintech M&A deals, and as I said, these are really good outcomes for the founders, for the people who are running these companies. Basically, the themes that we see is just like in IPOs, even in acquisitions, payments continues to be like the largest segment. I mean, in 2012-13, when we started Medici, this space was actually mostly referred to as payments or payments technology. In fact, we started as Let's Talk Payments and then rebranded to Medici because all the talk of the town was really payments. And over the years, we are glad that there's a lot of more focus on the other segments. I think after payments, what we have seen is that it's kind of spread out. There's a lot of wealth tech companies. There are financial infrastructure API companies like Plaid and Finicity, which got great exits. And we have written a lot about why Visa and MasterCard acquired these companies in their open banking and banking as a service initiatives. There are also some deals in cryptocurrency, capital market, insurtech, like one-off deals which are happening. And I think my colleague Weber will actually now take you through the details of each one of them. And feel free to access the full report on our website, gomedici.com. But over to you, Weber.
Thank you, Amit. Hello, everyone. So let me walk you through about what is in the main report and what else we can share a bit more in details. So in the main report, you will find a bit more in terms of segmental analysis, geographic analysis of IPOs and M&A both. And then you'll find more interesting charts and infographics on IPO trends by size, segment, and date, a kind of linearity of what happened, and if there is a pattern. So in M&A analysis, we will find a bit more about the acquirer side analysis and some of the top M&A deals, etc. Let me provide a bit more details of what Amit has already mentioned. So talking about IPOs, so another interesting chart that I wanted to show is about the segments of IPO. If you look at this interesting bar chart, you will see crypto and cybersecurity, though they have just one deal, but they had a huge number of, in terms of value of the IPO. So if I remember correctly, Tradeweb went for 1.1 billion in capital raise in IPO on day one. And CrowdStrike was around 600 million. So Tradeweb is one solution, capital markets, and CrowdStrike is cybersecurity. But as we look at this data of segment, it replicates again the same pattern of payments and wealth tech and around insurtech. Following that are the two segments where the number of IPOs and the average value of IPO remains very good. So if you look at the entire 19 months or 16 months of data that we analyze, the average IPO value across segments is around 342 million. And payments and wealth tech are two categories where number of IPOs, 13 and 6 respectively, have way above the average value of the IPO, which indicates that this segment is somewhere to start the business with, or if you are into this business, you can probably go for the IPO sort of exits as well. Let me share some details about these companies, what they have been doing a bit more. So for example, Tradeweb went for IPO. They are into the electronic marketplace. They offer the electronic marketplace. While CyberStrike is a US-based company, they went for IPO this June, and they raised around 600 million, around 7 billion of the valuation. Nexi is again a payment company. They went on the Luxembourg Stock Exchange this year in 2019, I think, but I'll check this. And they were one of the highest payment IPOs. Another one is Free, which was again very interesting case of IPO. It was, I think, the second biggest IPO of Japan in 2019. So Japan is delivering other big unicorns in terms of IPO as well. So that a few of the interesting cases. Looking at one more interesting chart that explains a bit more in this would be in the main report, where you will find the entire value of each segment. For example, in capital markets, 1.1 billion for just one deal, but in payments, you will find around 400 uh, uh, million valuation for average of each IPO value. Similarly, if you want to see what else is coming for 2020 and early 2021, we have already seen the names of Marqeta, Affirm, and Ant Group coming up in the market. For example, Ant says that they may aim for 30 billion IPO by end of 2020. Though the valuation they target may differ because the reports keep coming every day that it could be between 200 to 250 billion for the valuation. It would be interesting to see how this goes, but definitely this will be like one of the pioneer and historic movement for IPOs in terms of size for sure. Affirm is another one that says somewhere around 10 billion, but reports can be between 5 to 10 billion valuation. Though they have not disclosed how much they will raise, but they indicating that they will go for IPO in US in 2020. Marqeta is another one. They are currently valued by their last funding round around 4.3 billion, and they want to double their valuation in US IPO by first 2020, targeting around 8 billion valuation. These numbers may change depending on when they go for IPO and what sort of numbers they come up with. Some other names we can mention is Klarna, Coinbase, Instagram, Robinhood, and Policybazaar also indicated for India. They may go for IPO in 2021.
Basically, these are the companies who have announced that they may actually sort of do the IPOs. Obviously, it's not 100% confirmed. But I wanted to just quickly share a couple of things, Vaibhav, if you may allow that. One was that I was looking at, so Amazon became a $1 trillion company in about 25 years or so. We were having a discussion with some great fintech people, and the discussion was that which fintech company could actually get to $1 trillion in 25 years or less, like they would beat Amazon, right?
Yeah.
And in that, one of the primary candidates was Ant Group. So a lot of people believe that they have been around since I guess they floated around 2010 2014 timeframe, and then they have time over the next 10-15 years. If they can actually cross the $1 trillion mark, they would be faster than Amazon. So it will be very interesting to see that. Also, to your previous page, right, the comment that you made, payments and wealth tech remains to be like two very, very dependable segments in terms of IPO exits. And it's kind of, very interesting to see that trend. And a lot of people ask me like, why wealth tech, right? Like, because when you look at the funding space, you usually see that it's basically payments and, but there's a lot of lending and, other segments which also raise a lot of money from an investments perspective. But how come wealth tech sort of came out of the blue here in terms of IPOs? And we will also see that same thing in the M&A section as well. And there's a fascinating thing, right? Like when we talk about the M&As, I will share that inside. But go ahead, Vaibhav. Sorry.
Yeah. Thanks, Amit. So yeah, again, mentioning about the wealth tech, for example, there's XP Inc., which is digital broker, and I think Brazil-based. They went for IPO, which is above this average IPO size, which indicates that there is not just the numbers, but also the good IPO size that we have been talking about in this entire discussion. So yeah, after payments, I think wealth tech is something that is definitely a good place to watch for IPO and M&A exits in coming months as well. And so let me move on to M&A side of this fintech exits and share something more on the thing that we have, Amit has already shared. In terms of geographic distribution of total M&A deals, so we have analyzed 279 for 2020 only, up to July 31st. If you look at this again replicates the IPO story that we have been talking about. So in the US, the total number of IPO accounts for around 45.9% of total IPO registered in 2020. Second to follow is UK, which is way lesser, but valuation, how much they got in terms of exit can differ here. They were around 10.8%. And after that, 3.6 in Canada, and Germany are to follow these numbers. There are around 10 and 15 other countries that we have not plotted here to avoid the clutter. But for example, uh, names that are not mentioned is Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, Finland. They are around 1% each, and others around account for 13% of the total IPO deals registered in 2020 so far. So US remains definitely one of the highest geography for in IPO deal counts as well. Let me also, in the main report, you will find a bit more interesting charts in terms of segment analysis. We have done who is acquiring, what sort of deals we have witnessed, and what is the linearity of these deals. So you will find those kind of numbers and a bit more interesting charts in the main reports. You can probably download. We will share the link after this. Next slide. In terms of payments, since we're talking about payments and WealthTech being one of the highest or the most attractive segments, so we thought to share a bit more about the payments. So in the payments exit slides, you can see a couple of examples. It's not definitely not exhaustive list, but a couple of interesting ones. For example, FIS acquisition by WorldPay, which was at 28x at 43 billion, which is kind of huge. And next one is SafeCharge acquisition of Nuvei, a Canadian processor company. This was again 23.x in last year, August. So fintech, payments, WealthTech, and within payments, not just number deals, but the multiples that they are getting. It is very significant and worth note. In the main report, again, as I said, a bit more about details of the fintech payment exit is analyzed. We have covered a bit more about Visa and MasterCard, what they are acquiring. We have seen a bit more trend about how they are getting more inclined towards financial infrastructure API companies, for example, Visa's acquisition of Plaid and MasterCard's Finicity. So a bit more is there in the main report. Definitely very good, interesting charts to watch.
I think just to add,
Yeah.
basically payment space, we have seen a lot of consolidation also happening. I mean, if you look at FIS or WorldPay or TSYS, all of these are actually very large companies on their own, but they are kind of, coming together for geographic expansion or from a product line expansion. And some of these details we have in our blogs and, in other places, but it's kind of very fascinating to see the kind of, EV multiples as well that we have seen in payments.
Right. So Amit, this is where we will stop in the interest of time, and sharing the screen so that everybody can take a screenshot or go to the links, etc. See where to find. In Medici, GoMedici.com, you can go to the fintech exits URL, and you can find the report to be downloaded. This executive summary will be also available, and probably will share in further publication as well for you to download. And you can download the report, the main report, on the URL mentioned here, or you can scan the QR code right now.
Yeah, the URL is gomedici.com/fintech-exits. So it's like we have simplified it. It's just a website /fintech-exits. You can scan the QR code. And as I was saying in the beginning, right, like, we have seen that a lot of WealthTech companies, also kind of see exits because I guess, a lot of big banks, FIs, and even tech platforms, want to acquire that functionality. I think it's very hard to make money as a pure PFM, a WealthTech company, and sort of scale it, massively. But what we have seen is that, for example, if you look at this company, I think Bento Invest in Singapore, which was acquired by Grab. Today, Grab actually launched a micro invest product using that. So what we have seen is banks, FIs, and tech companies actually do acquisitions of WealthTech companies to offer those features, to offer those, as a product line expansion strategy. And with this, I think we would like to close this session. You have our email IDs, both mine and Vaibhav. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions, and do visit our website and kind of see the full report. We do intend to kind of build upon the FinTech Exits report, sort of every 6 months, and update this with whatever latest information is there. So with that, we would like to conclude. I think we have also reached towards the end of the time. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining. And thanks, Pepper, for sharing the insights with everyone.
Thank you.
And thanks to the organizers at Virtual FinTech Fair.